Hey y'all, today we are making homemade cake mixes. So first up, we're doing white cake. So there are so many options for this. This white cake is going to be like your base. If you want to add other things to it, we're going to do a chocolate also. But this is kind of your base cake. This is just a plain white cake, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm adding 4.5 cups of flour and I'm gonna sift it. Now, if you ever were confused on do you measure your flour before or after you sift it, it's really just a matter of the way that they word it. If it says a cup of sifted flour, then you're going to want to sift it and then measure it, okay? If it says 1 cup of flour sifted, then you're going to just measure out a cup and then just sift the flour. So hopefully that makes sense and that will clear up any confusion on what that means. Do I think that it makes a huge world of difference? Probably not. Sometimes I sift flour, sometimes I don't. But if you wanted an explanation of how that works, that is your explanation for that. So what I added in here is 4.5 cups of flour that I sifted. So I measured it and then I sifted it. Then I added in 3 cups of sugar. Yes, it's a lot of sugar, but we're making cake, okay? And then I added in about 2 teaspoons of salt, and I'm going to add 4.5 teaspoons of baking powder. You're going to see me put a lot more than that in here, only because the measuring spoon I have is a 1/2 teaspoon. My teaspoon measuring spoon was in the dishwasher, so I'm using my 1/2 teaspoon. That's why it looks like I'm putting a terrible amount of baking powder in this recipe, but I'm not, okay? So that is all we're going to add in here. Now, if you are like somebody who watches your sugar and stuff like that, you could always use instead of regular sugar, use a sugar substitute. But make sure that if you use a sugar substitute, that your sugar substitute swaps 1-for-1 for sugar. If it is not a 1-to-1 swap, you're going to need to adjust the amount of the artificial sweetener that you use. I'm pretty sure that Swerve is a 1-to-1 swap, so if you wanted to use Swerve in this recipe, then you would use the same amount. But if you were going to use something like monk fruit, you're definitely going to have to decrease the amount you use, because if you know anything about artificial sweeteners, sometimes they are way sweeter than like regular sugar is. So just giving that to y'all as an option and letting you know that if you choose to do it that way, you may need to adjust your amounts a little bit, okay? And make sure that you stick around to the end of the video, because we're going to bake this cake, because I want to let y'all know what it looks like when it's all baked up. So once you get everything mixed up, and like I said, you know, what did we have, like 4 ingredients? It's super easy, y'all. You're just going to put this into a jar. This is a 1/2 gallon jar. This amount of mix that we just make is going to make 2 9x13 cakes, okay? Or 4 8-inch round cake. You know what I mean? Like it's the same as 1 box of cake mix, okay? So I will definitely put all of the baking instructions and what you need to add to your mix down in the description box for y'all. It's going to all be written out, so you'll have all the information that you need, okay? So like I said, I'm just filling my jar up, and I like to use my cannon funnel, obviously, because I don't end up with stuff all over, but you may have to take it off and kind of shake your cake mix down a time or two, because your jar is going to be really, really full, okay? So that's all we're going to do for our white cake mix, y'all. It is super, super simple, and it is really, really delicious. Homemade cake is just so much better than the box stuff. Now, look, I use the box stuff too, but homemade tastes so much better. So next up, we're doing chocolate cake. So this is going to be very similar to our white cake, but it's going to be chocolate, okay? So what you're going to do is get your little sifter out, and we're going to measure out another 4.5 cups of sifted flour. Now, the baking instructions not the baking, but the amount of the mix that you're going to use for your chocolate cake mix when you get ready to bake it is going to be a little bit different than your white cake mix, because we have to add the extra cocoa, so it's going to give you more. Hopefully that makes sense. You know, you're going to have a cup more ingredients than you did with just the white flour. So we have to adjust that just a tiny bit. But again, everything is going to be in the description box for y'all. So if something I say doesn't make sense or you're like, what the heck are you talking about? It'll all be written out in the description box. Sometimes my mouth moves faster than my brain and I know what I'm trying to say and it doesn't come out that way. So anyway, I sifted in 4.5 cups of flour, and this is just plain all-purpose flour, y'all. Doesn't have to be anything special. You don't have to have bread flour or anything. So now we're going to add our cocoa. You need 1 cup of cocoa because this is going to be 2 boxes of cake, right? So we're going to sift that in there because cocoa is one of those things that's kind of notorious for having little clumps, you know? And I'm going to show you after I sifted. Look at all those little balls of cocoa. That would have been right in your cake mix. And nobody wants to bite into a hunk of unsweetened cocoa powder. You know what I mean? So sift your cocoa through there since you're already sifting your flour anyway. And then I just take a little spoon and mash down, one fell in my bowl, y'all. But I take a little spoon and I just kind of mash the rest of that cocoa down through the sifter. And that way you get all of your cocoa, but you don't end up with hunks of cocoa powder in your cake mix, okay? And my brain kind of shut down for a second. I only measured a 1/2 cup because I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was thinking 1 cake, but since we're doubling this and we're making 2 cakes, I needed a whole cup. So that's why you see me going back and adding this second one. That's still just 1 cup of cocoa powder because I had a 1/2 cup measuring cup. So anyway, once you get that all sifted in there, look, I had to go back. I had more little cocoa balls I had to go in there and mash through, y'all. But anyway, so that's the difference, you know, with the white cake and the chocolate cake is we just added some cocoa powder, okay? If y'all play around with other flavor recipes, come back and let us all know, you know, what y'all came up with. But anyway, so now we're going to add in our 3 cups of sugar. And again, if you want to substitute, if you make this and you feel like it's too sweet for you, cut back on the sugar a little bit. If you feel like it's too chocolatey for you, cut back on the cocoa a little bit. If you feel like it's not chocolatey enough, add a little bit more cocoa powder. The best thing about making homemade mixes is that you can really customize these to anything you want them to be, okay? So again, I have my 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon, so I'm measuring out, what am I measuring out? 4.5 teaspoons of baking powder, okay? I know it seems like a lot, but again, this is 2 cakes. It's 2 cakes, y'all. We're doubling it. So then you're going to add in your 2 teaspoons of salt. And that is it. That is our chocolate cake mix. It's super, super simple. I love the way that this tastes. But again, like I said, you know, if you're not sure, then don't double it. Just make, you know, half of what I'm giving you and then see if you like it. And if you don't, then just adjust the ingredients that you have in there. The thing about it is all these homemade mixes, if you look on Google or Pinterest or YouTube, you're going to find a million chocolate cake mixes. You know, everybody's recipe is different, and that's because everybody's taste is different, you know? So you have to figure out what works for you, adjust things to the way that you like them. And it'll be fine. It'll be just fine. It doesn't have to be an exact anything, you know. Play around with the flavors. That's the fun part. I mean, that's why I'm giving y'all 3 different mixes here, because nobody always eats, you know, white cake mix. Or nobody always, well, I mean, maybe somebody does. But usually you want to change things up every now and then. So absolutely change things up if you want to. If you want to put sprinkles in this, if you want to add extra vanilla when you get ready to cook it, if you want to add chocolate chips in it, you do whatever your little heart desires, okay? So remember when I said it's going to be a different amount because we added an extra cup? Now, if you know anything about these jars, a half-gallon jar will hold 8 cups, okay? And we probably, with adding that extra cup, we're probably real close to that. We're probably real close because we got about 7 cups into that first jar. And we added an extra cup to this one, y'all. So, again, I would highly suggest getting you a canning funnel, for one thing, to cut down on the mess. and make sure that you have some big jars if you get ready to do this. Now, I've had to buy mine at Walmart because I've had a really hard time finding them like at the thrift stores and stuff, but you can get your jars wherever you want to, and it doesn't have to be these big glass cannon jars. You can get whatever kind of container you can seal up, and it'll work fine, y'all. And the shelf life on these, I mean, I honestly, in my opinion, with the ingredients you have in here, like, I feel like it'll last forever. But I mean, are you going to really wait forever to use these? Probably not. So anyway, like I said, with an extra cup in here, we really were pushing the limits of this jar, y'all. So you can see right there, like I barely got it all in there, but it's in there. Look, it's puffing at us. But that's it. Now you have 2 boxes of chocolate cake mix to use whenever you want a chocolate cake. Right there, y'all. How easy was that? Okay, so next up we are doing spice cake. So it's that time of year, y'all, spice cake. Now, I'm not sifting this because I just used my sifter to make chocolate cake, and I didn't feel like washing it. So we're just gonna go unsifted for this one. This is a very small amount. So we're gonna do 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. Now, this recipe is going to make 1 8x8 pan. Okay, so this is a small cake. You could double it if you want to do a 9x13, or you can quadruple it if you just love spice cake. But this is just going to make you one, like a 8x8 pan of cake, whatever I'm trying to say. So I had to get 2 measuring cups because one of my measuring cups wouldn't fit down in my jar. But that is my homemade brown sugar. Y'all know we made brown sugar together. I used every bit of it up, and then I made some more, and this time I made enough to put in a gallon jar because I use a lot of it and it tastes so much better. So you're going to need 1 cup of the packed brown sugar. So did I say 1 1/4 cup all-purpose flour, 1 cup of brown sugar. Then you're going to add in 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm still using my 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon. So you're going to see me add 4, but it's only 2 total teaspoons. It's all going to be in the description box, but I don't want y'all to be confused about what I'm doing, so that's why I keep saying it over and over. I added about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're going to add in about a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. You don't have to add this in if you don't want to. It just gives it a little bit of extra spice. And then we're going to use 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. Now, if you don't have pumpkin pie spice, I think it's a combination of ginger, cloves, nutmeg, and cinnamon maybe. You can make your own at home. Just find you a recipe and make it at home if you don't have it. Yeah, but if you do have it, then it's just easy to use it. So that is what goes in our spice cake, y'all. So I'm just mixing it up, trying to make sure I get any little clumps and lumps out of there, you know, because I didn't sift anything. But yeah, it is super, super simple. And don't worry, again, I will put all the baking instructions, what you need to add to this, how you need to bake it, and all that will all be down in the description box for y'all. I'm trying to make everything as easy as I can, and I'll put it closer to the top of the description box, and that way y'all will have an easier time finding it, because I used to put it down towards the bottom, but I think people were having a hard time finding it or didn't know to scroll, you know, to keep scrolling down there to find it. So I'm going to put it a little bit further towards the top, so it should be a little bit easier for y'all to be able to find the actual written recipes for this. I've also had people ask me for links to be able to print these. I don't have that yet. I'm looking into maybe how to do that. I'm not sure that it's even possible, but I'm going to try to figure it out. And if I can, I'll try to start doing that at some point, but don't hold me to it because it won't be anytime this week for sure. But that is our spice cake mix, y'all. So now we're going to bake one of these cakes. Now we're going to bake the white cake. I'm not going to bake all 3, well, for a couple of reasons. I don't need 3 cakes at my house. And, you know, they're all going to come out looking pretty much the same. So we're just going to give y'all one of these so you can see that it really does turn out looking like a cake. Okay, so what I'm adding in here is 3 1/2 cups of that dry mix. And because we had about 7 cups in there, we're going to have 3 1/2 cups left over for the next cake that we're doing. Okay, now this is just on the white. The measurements are different on the other 2. Then I added in 3/4 cup of melted butter, and I don't want to scramble my eggs, so I'm just kind of mixing my butter in there. Then I'm going to add in 1 cup of milk, and this is not like a box cake where you just add some eggs and oil and water. This is actually a homemade cake, so that's why you're getting the milk and the butter. Y'all, I'm telling you, this cake is divine. It is divine. You have to cook this, and you're gonna really know the difference. If you haven't really done homemade cake and you just always done store-bought, which is kind of what most of us do, right? Make this homemade cake and you're definitely going to be able to tell the difference in the way that it tastes. It's so much better. So now I'm adding in 3 eggs, and then I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I cannot wait for my homemade vanilla to get ready so I can start baking with it. But it's, I'm trying to let it age a little bit before I get, start trying to use it right now. So mine is store-bought for right now, but, we're getting there to the homemade eventually. It's up in the cabinet just working its little magic up in there. So you're just going to mix this up. Now, because I stirred in between, I had it clumped into my darn whisk there. But, yeah, you're just going to mix this up just like you would any other cake. I didn't say this, but make sure you have your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Y'all, this cake, I'm telling y'all, the vanilla, you can taste the vanilla. It's not like that overpowering processed taste, so you can like taste the ingredients in here. Hopefully that makes sense, and that at least one of y'all out there will know what I'm talking about when I say you can actually taste the individual ingredients in here. It is so good, y'all. It is so good, and it's really super simple. So if you make it in big batches like I did, then you have, we're baking this one today, and now we still have a whole other cake sitting in the cabinet for whenever we need it. And then you can just remake it whenever you need to. So I'm going to put this in a 9x13 pan. I'm going to spray my pan real good. You can butter your pan or rub oil on it, or whatever way you grease your pan will work just fine. I did not need to add like flour to this. It comes away from the edges just fine all by itself. Did not stick at all. So you're just going to pour this into your 9x13 pan, and then you're going to just spread it out, as good as you can. And you could, also obviously do this in, what are they called? Cupcakes. Oh my goodness, y'all. You could make cupcakes. You could do 2 8x8 pans. That way you can have like a stacked cake. However you want to, but it is, it will make a 9x13 pan, just like any boxed cake mix. So you're going to bake that for about 30 minutes, 25 to 35 minutes, just until your toothpick comes out clean. And then we put some chocolate icing on it. Y'all, look how good this looks. I mean, obviously you can't tell the difference in box cake and this cake, but it's nice and fluffy. And like I said 15 times already, the flavor is divine. It is so good, y'all. So we ended up with 2 white cake mixes, our little small spice cake mix, and 2 chocolate cake mixes. So get to making these and get them in your cabinet, y'all. All right, that is all I have for y'all today, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.